brought to you by Visionary Parenting. Start reading for free today at visionaryfam.com/parenting.
How do we help our kids find and follow God's plan for them after high school? We're going to talk about it today on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Amy Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Rienow, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Rob and Amy Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. Honey, 2026 is well underway, and we've actually got a graduation coming up this year. Our daughter Millie, senior in high school. So this was great timing to get the question we're going to be responding to today from the Jacks family. If you've been with us the last couple weeks, you know that Brian and Amy Jacks sent in a couple questions, MP3 questions to share with the Family Vision audience for us to respond to. And here's their question for today.
Hi there, Rob and Amy. It's Brian and Amy Jacks from Bedford County, Virginia, along with our children, Olivia, Caleb, Evelyn, Silas, Elizabeth, Helen, Adele, and Luke. We're wondering if you'd be willing to talk about some of the considerations Christians should be thinking about when looking at options after high school graduation. We appreciate your insights and thank you for your ministry.
What an important question that every parent is dealing with, or they know it's coming much sooner than expected. So, honey, let's dive in. What would we say to the Jacks family and all the families as we navigate? What does life look like after high school?
Okay, well, this is a great question from the Jacks family. And I would say in my everyday life, when I'm having conversations with people at church or just around town, that I often get asked about this specific thing. Like, how do you help your kids navigate what to do after high school? And it's also important to know that we as a family have done our education path. We've never really been in public school at all, like 100%, but we've homeschooled. We've been a part of a homeschool co-op. And then our kids have been involved in more of a traditional Christian high school. So those are the settings that we've operated in when it comes to education. And what's interesting is depending on the setting, there's a very strong opinion about what your kids should do after high school. So we have learned that if you're in the homeschool world, there's a very strong opinion that, college is kind of overpriced and, a waste of time, a strong push to get your kids thinking entrepreneurially, a push for a cheaper college education, I would say, through online resources. That's very, very strong, almost to the point that I would say there can be a very negative attitude about sending your kids to college. Now, in contrast, if you are in more traditional school settings, whether that be a public school setting or even like a traditional Christian high school setting, the path is primarily college. And it's college, 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 college. In fact, there's now an opening to what you would call a gap year. I would say that's becoming a little more popular, but it's typically a gap year program, like a specific go to this gap year program to study this. Often they're good programs like Bible knowledge or a missions gap year, but they're very specifically called a gap year experience. So very interestingly, when we're in different settings, we will get kind of pushback on the choices that we make depending on the setting that we are in. So backing up the train, my second daughter, Lissy, had graduated from high school, and her and I we were speaking together. And on the drive up to this homeschool co-op meeting, she kept saying, "Mom, I just wish that at the high school that people would think out of the box, and everybody feels like they have to go to college. And really, it's just not for everyone. I mean, this gap year, I didn't want to do it because I felt so much pressure that I should go to college. But, it's been the best thing for me. I've learned so much. I'm excited to go to college next year, but this has been exceptional. And I just think more kids need to know that they don't have to go to college, that there are other options out there." So that's our whole conversation going to this homeschool meeting. We go to the homeschool meeting, and during this time, we meet with some families that are, a lot of them are doing great, but a couple families are struggling, and they're specifically struggling with kids that are in this age group post-high school and floundering and having different family problems, different personal problems that they're dealing with. So then on the drive home, here's my daughter. I don't understand in the homeschool community why they're so negative about college. Why won't they let kids go to college if they want to go to college? And she's just, because it was just completely 180. But what she was putting her finger on was right in both cases, in the sense that in both settings, there was a approved path, or this is the path, was what your kids should do. And that, what I call box type thinking, was very limiting, because in this homeschool world, after that, when we left that meeting, it was clear that there were some kids who were struggling because they had kind of been told, you should be an entrepreneur, you shouldn't go to college, and they were really sort of suffering. Like some of those things might have been.
They were in that box.
They were in a box and told that that's the box that you're supposed to be in. So it's a really important conversation. And we do need to, first of all, think of this as we talk about everything beyond today in this podcast. We answer your question. So much of this has to do with your kid, your individual kid, your situation. I really push back to this is what is the path and this is what has to be done. I guess that is what I get sort of like under my skin, because I think that leads to more problems than anything else.
Yeah, totally agree. So part of what we're here to say is one size does not fit all, but there's two things we think every single family should do. So here's two boxes we want to put you in, okay? The first one is prayer. This is a huge life step for your child and for your family. So you need to be praying about it. God, you know the plans you have for me. You know the future. You know the calling that you have on my life. Not my will, but yours be done. Lead us and direct us. Open the doors, close the doors. Make sure you're praying about this as a family. And then the second thing that I think is absolutely essential for any kid in this stage is action. I hate to see a young person who's floundering and who's adrift. Now, I understand that it's normal and common for an 18-year-old. They don't know exactly what their gifts are, what their passions are. Maybe they don't know what they want to study. Maybe they don't know what kind of career they want. But if you're 18 years old, what you want to do is work with your family and try to determine, like, pick a path. Say, I think right now I'm most interested in studying business. Great. Enroll in that community college, enroll in that 4-year college, sign up as a business major and go for it. Put your pedal to the metal, study business. Now, after your first year, after 6 months, you might come home and say, I hate business. I don't want to do this at all. I want to do psychology. Great. Change your major. Pursue psychology. Put your foot on the gas. Go full steam ahead. It's okay to have option A, option B, option C, and to try these different paths, but give yourself to them. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It's the Lord Christ you are serving. And that would apply to any of these paths. If you feel called to entrepreneurship, start that business, press in, go for it, give it your all, go down that path and see where the Lord takes you.
I think we have to acknowledge that this is a hard transition. And I do think that people sometimes get mixed up with something being bad or wrong just because something is hard and difficult. And in many ways, kids who are going straight to college, that can be the path of least resistance, because it's, especially for kids who've been in traditional schooling, that's kind of like that's what you do next. And often then a greater, more difficult transition happens when they've graduated from college. But basically, all of our kids are going to have to transition from being a dependent person in a household to an independent person. And it's going to be challenging, period. So, but some of the things that we've used to mark the whole question of college, or why our kids, most of us have ended up there, is, first of all, we like to tell them that we in our family, now this is not everybody's family, but in our family, we feel like it's important if you go to college, you do come out with a very specific marketable skill. We don't want to encourage them to get a what I would call it, I don't know, a generic or undescript degree that doesn't equip them for something, because
A degree that gives you a job.
a degree that enables you to get a job, and a degree that the job has more value than the degree. Like if you have a degree that is so expensive to get a low budget job, that is, out of balance, and you're putting your kids in a situation, unless you have the funds to pay for college. We don't. So we have to really value what is the value of this education. Our kids have to demonstrate that they know the value of education. And that's not something you start teaching your kids at 18. You need to be teaching that to your kids all along the way, so that they don't assume, they're not blowing money on a college degree and thinking that it's all about fun and the experience, and not understanding that they're there for a very specific purpose, that they have demonstrated that responsibility. And that looks like a lot of different things in our household. I mean, my kids laugh at me because I really am the parent, and we can put them on here as a testimony that I don't really care about grades. And they always joke about that because other moms are always checking their grades. I hardly even know how to check my kids' grades. I don't care about grades because it's their diligence in the home, their attitude at home, their honor and respect. Those are the things that are what I'm keeping tabs on. And to be honest, I know because their diligence, I know because their attitude, I really have confidence that they're going to be working their best. So it's not really about grades. But my point is, you don't want to send a kid to school, away to college, who hasn't demonstrated certain levels of clear diligence and responsibility and a value of learning, a value of education. And granted, I know a lot of kids are going to school that aren't doing that, but it really doesn't matter what the whole masses are doing. It matters what your kid is doing.
Yeah, so just some bullet points on the traditional college route. Then we'll talk gap year. Again, like Amy said, a marketable degree. We're not paying this astronomical amount of money for an experience. Trying to avoid debt, okay? Our kids have taken on a little bit of debt going through college. We have 4 college graduates now, praise God. But before we start that process, we say, listen, the goal is that this debt you take on, you're going to pay it off within 1 year of graduation. 100% debt-free, pay that off. Some of our kids have opted to just finish in 3 years, with AP and CLEP and all these different things. A lot of kids bring some college credit into school, so finishing in 3 years is a really smart thing to do. This is a conversation for another day, but if you're pursuing a Christian college, we really recommend pursuing Christian colleges that are distinctively Christian. We are less inclined toward funding a Christian college that is Christian in name only. In some ways, it's safer spiritually to have your kids at a secular school where at least lines are clear and everything is black and white. But again, that's a conversation for another day. And then just another principle on this of not funding a child who's going the wrong direction in their life, just as a general principle. If you are not enthusiastic about where they're going spiritually, relationally, emotionally, and of course also with their studies and career, just pouring money into them going the wrong way may be unwise. So honey, let's talk about this. You talked about Lissy's gap year, but let's go back and talk about that.
Well, I was also going to say it's important with the college situation too. We have kind of a rule. You don't own your own life till you pay 100% for your own life. So, my kids have actually often, they'll be at school and they're calling me and ask if they can go, drive somewhere to visit someone for a weekend. If they've said their friends thinks it's strange that I have to ask parents' permission to do something at college, but we are helping fund their college. So they have to have a clear mindset.
Yeah, they're driving my car.
Yeah, or just that they have to have a clear mindset that we still are very much partnering with them. They don't have independence yet. So just because they're at college doesn't mean they have a completely independent life and they have autonomy over all their decisions. In our house, you don't get that 100% till you own your life. And when they say, well, what does it mean to own my life? I'm like, well, you pay for all of it. All of it is your life, and when you're in that place, then we're having a different conversation. But a lot of kids, for a lot of reasons, college isn't a great choice. Some of those financial, or if you have a kid that really has no idea what they're doing, if it were our child, we wouldn't encourage them to go to college yet because we don't want to waste a lot of money. I mean, there should be some thought before you're spending that much money on tuition. We don't want to spend that money to quote unquote find ourselves, and again, this is individual up to your child, but that's some of the things that we've used as a guideline. It's better to work, better to make some money, better to have maybe pursue like our daughter did a missions experience in Scotland that really helped not only define what she wanted to do, but it also set her apart that she ended up winning a full tuition scholarship. And I really believe her gap missions experience set her apart to achieve that scholarship. Again, I think it's really important that kids don't feel like there's something wrong with them if they're not going to college, or that they would choose to be at home for whatever those reasons are. Again, I think that the homeschool world has done a very good job at showing kids that there are alternate paths. And that has been a great fruit, I think, that we see in the homeschool world. And that is starting to, I think, come over into all sorts of education. So kids are thinking about it differently, and they're not just willing to take on all this debt for a 4-year degree.
Yeah. And a gap year is not, well, I just don't know if I'm ready to go to college yet, so I'll take a gap year. A gap year, like you said, honey, can be for missions. A gap year can be for earning money. And there's a lot of kids that are simply not called to ever go to college, that they're going to pursue a path of entrepreneurship.
Right, which you're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll
next.
dive into that. Or pursue a path into the trades. Now, a trades has specific education that goes with it, but those are very high-paying jobs, very secure jobs that you can take care of a family with, and we need folks in the trades who are passionate about it and gifted in it. But on the entrepreneur side, this is just the best time ever in human history to build your own business. And so if you have a child that is wired up in that direction, encouraging them to pursue that, encouraging them to experiment with building businesses, and some people are not wired up to do that at all. But there's a ministry called Unbound, which is a ministry that helps young adults, walks with young adults through a lot of these questions. It's a discipleship ministry, discover your purpose, discover your calling. So if you're walking with your son or daughter through some of this, check out Unbound.
Well, I was going to add to the entrepreneurship piece. That is something that gets pushed a lot in the homeschool world. And even at young ages, your child should be an entrepreneur. That child should be an entrepreneur. There's so many good, valuable things in that message, and there are people that need to be pushed in that direction. But I think the off-balance part of that is that some people aren't entrepreneurs. In fact, a lot of people aren't entrepreneurs. And when a child is told you should be an entrepreneur or this is the path, I think that can lead people into feeling, they may never be comfortable in their own skin because they were never, that's not something that they should feel like they quote unquote have to do. It might be better, like you said, working for a company, and that's perfectly acceptable. We're not all going to be entrepreneurs. The other thing I think that needs to be addressed when we talked about these post-college situations for the students, I don't know the right word here, young adults who choose these more unique paths. Like let's say you don't do a gap year, you just go start working, or you have an entrepreneur mindset and you go into business. The reality is the other factor in this time period is community and relationships. And we have seen a lot of kids who choose these untraditional paths, but then have a lot of unhappiness in their life because they don't have a really good way of meeting other young people their age. And the important thing to understand is relationships that develop between the ages of about 16 to 22, it's a very critical window. And because our culture is designed, if you're in like a high school or if you go to college, you are going to have exposure to meeting people that is actually really, really good. And I often see that if young adults haven't made some close relationships in that window, that it's often a lot harder to do after that window. And I just think we need to acknowledge that because honestly, some of the reasons why we've allowed our kids to go to college because it has been very good for them socially. And I'd like to just say that
they've made incredible
lifelong
friends. Christian friends.
Lifelong friends. They've two of them that they're spouses at college. And that is one of the reasons why college can be a very good place to go, because it provides that whole other aspect of life, which is important.
But I think what you're saying is so important, the importance of relationship during this phase, like you said, 16 to 22, 16 to 24, relationships with friends, but also relationships with family.
Mm-hmm.
That navigating and building strong family relationships during that window is critical. Family life doesn't stop for any follower of Jesus. I can remember when I was in college going back and forth. I was staying with my mom. I was staying with my brother and his wife. I was so absorbed in my life and in my schedule when I was home for summers. They gave me a place to stay. They gave me food. But I was like checked out, disconnected from them. And I think I actually kind of hurt their feelings by being so absent, part of that looking back. So one of the things we're working on, it's really difficult. So even our daughter Lainey, she's graduated from college. She is getting married this summer, so she's got a year where she's home before she's getting married. So she's an adult, she's working, but she's still living in the house. And we're all a part of a household and learning how to continue to work together. She contributes to the needs of a household because she lives in the house, and not giving up on building all of those skills and all of those relationships is absolutely critical. Okay, well, Jack's family, thanks for sending in these questions that we've been able to talk about the last few episodes. We love you and we appreciate you. The Jacks hosted me and the boys for a hunting weekend at their place last year. I'll never forget it. And we'd love to see you at one of our live upcoming VFM events. January 17 and 18 is the Visionary Parenting Summit at the Village Church of Barrington here in Illinois. Also in Illinois, January 24th, the Father-Son Connect, 9:30 to 11 at Wheaton Academy. For all fathers and sons, grandfathers and grandsons, just a low-key morning to build our relationships together. Then over the course of the spring, we're going to be in Oklahoma, Kansas, Seattle, Nashville. 2 summer camps this summer, Northern Pines in Wisconsin, Cedar Bay in Michigan. We would love to spend time with your family face-to-face. Find out about all those events at visionaryfam.com/events. And we always love to hear from you. Send your prayer requests to us. Our prayer team would love to pray for you. Podcast at visionaryfam.com. And we want you to follow the Family Vision podcast, but more than that, we want your family to follow Jesus every day. And we look forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.